Okay, so again, I would like to welcome everyone to this event. It is our pleasure to sit here with so many people that have many things to say. I would also like to immediately now invite everybody to take a look at the exhibition, which is a part of the book, which is why we are here today. The title of the book is Beyond Molotovs, and here among us are also the editors of the book. But we also have a few other guests, and I would really kindly like to invite our guests to present themselves, and then we will develop the event. At the same time, any time you might have any kind of question, feel free to ask. And there is a copy of the book over here. You can also browse through it and even read something to us if you want, and then we can open a discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, there is also copies of the book on that table over there. And if somebody would be so kind to just take a few copies and put it so people can look at it while we are having this conversation. Thank you so much.
So I start. Okay, yeah, welcome everybody and thanks for inviting us, especially to Katja and Sasha. My name is Börries. I'm one of the editors of the book. We're actually a group of 8 people who edited it. And 2 collectives. I'm coordinating one of those collectives, which is the International Research Group on Authoritarianism and Counter Strategies, which is a research group with people from all around the so-called Global South, looking at the kind of global intersections of authoritarianism. Yeah, so. Yeah. Yes.
My name is Hasan Alhallaq. I'm from Palestine. I born in Gaza City, and we later continue and discussion about many stuff.
My name is Katja. I'm a member of the InfoKolpa collective.
My name is Aurel. I'm also one of the editors of Beyond Molotovs. And I've been researching for some time the intersection of neoliberalism and fascism or authoritarianism, which also brought me to this book.
Hello everyone, my name is Asel Yeszhanova. I'm from Kazakhstan and consider myself as an urban and cultural activist.
Hello everyone, thanks for coming, thanks for having us too. My name is Ahmed. I'm from Morocco. I am a home refugee seeker here. Thanks for this chance for having a lot of things to talk about, like authoritarian, political problems, and many other things that we will see. Thanks again.
Okay, so I would like to first of all explain something about, not explain, but perhaps just ask directly something about the book. The first thing that you notice, it is a visual handbook of anti-authoritarian strategies, which means that there is a certain amount of text, but at the same time it is very potent with life itself through depictions of protests, of actions of people. There is poetry, there is music, and just images, the faces of people themselves, which is not something that you ordinarily would expect from something that is called a handbook. Another thing, which usually it would be just number 1, you need to go in the streets. Number 2, you need to protest, yell very loud, throw tomatoes at something. You know, this would be something that I would expect. But this is presenting the human experience in a very different way, and at the same time, it is not also geographically categorizing the struggles, but it is categorizing the struggles in a thematic perspective, from a thematic way, and how you phrased these themes is something that is really peculiar, and I was wondering if you could say something more about that.
Yeah. Should I start? Do you want to start?
Okay, there was quite a lot of questions packed into one very long question, so maybe we have to start that when we talk about authoritarianism, we don't talk about only like a phenomenon in the state, or like what people maybe usually consider authoritarian or fascist, a certain kind of state organization, but as a wider phenomenon that spans the whole society, that is a cultural phenomenon that is in the state, but also in the economy, in the individual psychology, in the social sphere. And why this book is so visual and a handbook of strategies is because we are focusing on a certain domain of the strategies. We are focusing on the dimension of the affective and the emotive counter-strategies. Why do we do that? Because like 100 years of engaging with fascism and also other authoritarian movements have shown time and again that these political moments operate much more on the visceral, on the socio-psychological, on a deeper level, while the rational contents, the arguments they put forth, the projects they propose are quite interchangeable. Their affective offer is often much more powerful and where they succeed. But this knowledge is often not really transferred to when we speak of counter-strategies. When we think, okay, what can we do against fascism? Then we suddenly start to ask again, okay, what kind of organizations do we need? What kind of arguments do we need to make? What kind of ideas do we need? But we don't talk about what kind of affects can we mobilize? What kind of emotions do we cultivate? What kind of relationships do we foster? Or what kind of sensuous experiences do we create? And this is the aim of the book. So this book is also not about protests. There are a lot of mass protests or protests in this book, but it's not about protest as a strategy. Protest has a very its own idea of how societies change. They say, okay, we gather a lot of people, we go to the street, we protest, and then the government will change something. And our idea of change or of this affective domain is more looking at, okay, you go to a protest, how does it change you? What kind of relationships do you have in the protest? How does it change you as a political subject that goes back into society? What kind of sensuous experiences do you have? Do you share food with others? These kind of things. So when we have a mass protest in it, we look at it from this affective dimension. But other counter-strategies in the book are very small, very silent. They can be poetry that is not shared in a wide range, or it can be a board game where people take the subject position of players and can engage with conspiracy theories in a way that would otherwise not be possible, or could be an archive that memorizes alternative ways of writing history and counters the fascist urge to rewrite history from a dominant position. So, yeah. I hope I answered these questions. Maybe you want to add something, Börries?
No, I think there's also the one key question for us was always how these different kind of strategies actually relate to one another. And you were also asking, okay, why is it, or it is not actually a manual which says, okay, this is 10 easy steps to counter fascism forever. Huh? Because actually when we are looking at on a whatever global scale how authoritarian developments work, what Aurel already mentioned, then in this political level we can see very different ideological formations. They have much in common, like anti-feminism for example, or racism, nationalism and so on. Is something that we are seeing all over the world, but the concrete kind of expressions of authoritarianism might be very different. And what Aurel also already mentioned, we think that there's a deeper psychological, socio-psychological, emotional level where a lot of this is kind of can be compared, and a lot of the counter strategies can also be shared. And for us, it's always important to say, okay, you can look at one of these contributions that, by the way, we can talk about it a bit more, but we made this exhibition, which are like excerpts from the book. If you have a look at it later on, you can see, like, you can take a look at single contributions, but we always kind of defend the idea that the manual or the handbook character becomes clearer when you look at the whole, like the whole mosaic of different strategies and what they have actually in common. And this is where also like these strategies that we talk about like come really to the fore, I'd say. Yeah.
Maybe one general questions for the both editors. As we said, there is a lot of art. Art produces some affective response in people. At the same time, it is a practice, a creative practice. So are you basically, is the undercurrent of the book saying that struggle against fascism must be creative, that we cannot separate? Is there something in the act of creation that is in its core anti-fascist?
I think what we're trying, one thing that we're trying to say, okay, we're not speaking about art. There are artistic things, and there's like the power of like kind of creation, which is important, and we do make a claim for creation in the sense of imagining another world, imagining other ways of being, because and this is why we say, okay, like this play with the Beyond Molotovs is okay. Of course, we need kind of defensive anti-fascist strategies. Yeah. But we cannot stop at this point. We cannot think about an only defensive mode. Like the current fascism or authoritarianism that we are seeing is a kind of outcome of a crisis and of a feeling of crisis, which is both within, let's say, the people and also in the ruling classes. There is like a crisis of governance, there's a crisis of capitalism, and like fascism, historic fascism, this, what we are seeing today, is kind of a product of this in a way. So kind of bourgeois or liberal take to this is, okay, we have to defend democracy. But we are seeing that this has like real sincere limits. You know, we get to some point, and then what we are claiming is we have to kind of regain utopian energy. We have to think of not just defending the democracy, which was not so good in the first place, and which is getting worse, as we see. Yeah. So we have to kind of think of strategies that go beyond the defense, creating other ways of being, of seeing, of being together, of doing politics, and so on. So in this sense, I would say, yeah, this is definitely like a very important creative dimension in a way of concrete utopias. Yeah, of like actually, I think most, if not all, of the contributions that we have these kind of glimpses of. It is like a bit kitschy to say it, because it sounds so weird, because we have this take somewhere that it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. But anyways, like the creative power of thinking of another world which is possible, I think still holds and still is very important. And if this is meant by creative energy, and creative energy not of utopia, which is just like kind of something that happens in an intellectual discourse, but which happens in concrete ways of doing things together and of being political about things and of building stuff together, then I think creation is absolutely key, yes.
So creation and imagination.
I think creation and imagination are definitely key points of what we are addressing.
Yeah.
I would like to add something. Yeah, 2 points regarding art and creation. Adding to that, one thing is, if we if we accept that authoritarianism and fascism is a mass movement that is carried by masses, so there is people enthusiastically supporting this political movement, then fighting it will also mean to get people, to change people who support this movements, and that can also mean changing ourselves as well in the process. It doesn't mean that we know the best way and we just have to tell the people in a very emotive way how to do it or whatever, but it means creating spaces where people can change. They can change their political subjectivity, they can themselves as subjects, and this is the realm of art. In a way, this is not the definition that everyone would have, but this creating these spaces of emancipatory affect is for me the definition of art. Of course, creativity and artistic things can be regressive, can be escapist, can be put in the work of a repressive system, but for me, when it's lacking this emancipatory affect, then it is not art. And another point, and this is going more onto the content, what fascism is, or authoritarianism as well, and touches on the notion of creation, is that we have to understand that in the end, ultimately, in fascism, there is always a cult of death. There is a fetishization of the machine over a living matter, over the organic, and there is a fetishization of the destruction of others, of the destruction of nature, and ultimately also of the destruction of oneself. This is sometimes hidden, as less seen, but it's always there. And so part of any anti-fascist strategy is the celebration of life, the celebration of the organic over the machine, the celebration of the chaos over order, over lifeless order. So creation also is part of the content of anti-fascist strategies, of celebrating creation and creativity in this, not in like this empty space, just creating anything, but celebrating life itself and its chaos.
Just to add one point before the critique, and we see it as one aspect of anti-fascist strategies, which is not like the only aspect. We think that this is why we think the idea of beyond Molotovs is, yeah, Molotovs might be necessary, but we also have to think beyond that. No, we are not saying that with these kind of strategies, you know, like we will win against fascism. That's it. No, I think this is also an important point.
Yes, so it's like creating new subjectivity and new realities, right?
I was actually going to connect Molotovs with guillotines, but I agree with what what you're saying. If I may, when it comes to this specific affective and emancipatory, as you say, notion, everyone who have had the chance to discuss with and everyone who has had the chance to observe and read the book immediately, especially due to the recent situation in which the world is right now, and the specific part of the world, everyone took a longer time, let's say, to read the contribution with the watermelon. Yeah. So if it's okay with you, I would like to also ask you two if there is any you can follow, for example, a specific, let's say, contribution that is timeless here in some way. And Hasan, please, I would really appreciate your comment on the watermelon. Yeah. So.
Who wants first? No, he's first.
I already. You will talk about the watermelon. I think there's many of the contributions are in a way timeless, because for us the question is not like which of these struggles or which of these strategies were kind of successful, no? Because, you know, we're leftist people, we are not so often successful in some things. No, and many others, of course, we are. But then, like, it's not like the criteria that we are putting. We think that there's really actually a lot to learn and a lot that is that builds up there. And we think that it's not the question of like what is like the like in the end of the day, like, okay, you managed to do this and that law was passed or that law was not passed. You know, I think there is an accumulation of knowledges and of energies and of many things that are really worth looking at. When you ask me like about like a contribution or something that I think makes, which I would stress now, is, for example, like the contribution which is here right behind us, which is one of the many feminist contributions, which was very interesting for us, because yeah, maybe just to tell you a bit about the story also, or the history of this book, is we kind of had the idea to make a book on anti-authoritarian strategies, because there is a lot, especially if you work in the field as I do, there's a lot of literature on far-right populism, the far-right, authoritarianism, fascism, and so on and so forth, and there's very little knowledge about counter-strategies. I don't know how many books or articles you've read about it, but this is very not so systematic knowledge, I think, about it. And then, of course, you could say a lot of things about it. We decided, for the reasons that Aurel also already stated, that this is like the part that we consider like really key. And then we wrote like a call for proposals, and we sent it like through all our networks all around the world. Got like 150 proposals, and we did not define in very specific terms what we mean by authoritarianism. Yeah, we said, okay, probably people know what we mean by this, which was, you know, like a way of not imposing kind of a definition what we think authoritarianism is. It was very, one of the interesting things was, of course, we got a lot of kind of feminist struggles, which are feminist struggles, but which are also anti-authoritarian struggles, as well as migrant struggles could be seen as migrant struggles, but they are also anti-authoritarian struggles, and so on and so forth. We can, I think, like, this is one of the ideas, and which is a very important, like politically, a very important idea to think of anti-fascist articulations. You know, we think of, at least like coming from the German context, we think of anti-fascism as like a black bloc organizing, you know, like this is Antifa, you know. Okay, nowadays, I mean, and it has all the legitimacy and a very, very important, you know, like especially like in the 1990s in Germany, like to counter the growing fascist movement. No, this is not the question. The question is now at a time where we don't have small fascist group, but we have a fascistization of society. This is a complete different context, and we have to think differently about what anti-fascism actually means. And it also means articulating the struggles like in new ways. For us, it was very interesting to see how many kind of, let's call it like feminist contributions or proposals we got. One of them is, for instance, this from Mexico, where you don't have an authoritarian government in the sense of a far-right government, actually a leftist government, but where patriarchy and patriarchal violence as a very key articulator, or very, very key expression of authoritarianism is countered like in many ways, which starts from kind of the body of a person through like what happens in the neighborhood and how women organize to kind of create safe spaces, how to visibilize masculine sexualized violence and so on, up to massive movements and, you know, like massive protest movements, countering kind of, and then we have you're an urban activist, you said, like this question here is where again, because the government or the state was so afraid of the feminist protests, that they built like a whole huge metal wall around the presidential palace to protect themselves against violent feminists. And that was like kind of taken by the feminist movement, and they turned this metal wall into like kind of a memorial where they wrote down all the names of the women assassinated in femicides. So you have like a very many layers, which is of course, I mean, you know, feminist struggle is not a struggle that you just win, where you just say, okay, now we won. No, yeah, at some point when patriarchy falls, but you know, like up to there's like an accumulation. And so I think this is, for example, for me, like one of the very interesting examples, you know, of how these different levels articulate.
Okay, great. Thank you for this pointing out the feminist struggles. But now to return back to the question of Palestine, we've been watching, the whole world has been watching now for a year, a genocide happening in Gaza. I think we can pretty much be sure that the state of Israel is in fact a fascist state, or at least the actions are fascist. And one project exposed in the book is the world-known symbol of the watermelon. So I would really, first of all, Hasan, for you, I kind of have 3 questions. First of all, what do you think about the watermelon? Is it a legitimate symbol of resistance or struggle or satire for you? The second question is, what kind of resistance strategies do people in the occupied territories employ? And the third question is, where we are now, which is hundreds and thousands of people dead. What?
Can I go step by step?
Yes.
To don't forget it all the questions.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Again, I am a Palestinian, and I am proud when I say I am a Palestinian. And I am born in Gaza. But I am originally, again, from what they say the occupation Israeli, Ashkelon or Asqalan. This is my original city for my father, my grandfather, and all the generation. And I would like to thank always my second home, Slovenia. 1 year here, I am I try to send the message for the situation in Gaza. And I try really always to send a message, and they respect my message in my second home, Slovenia. First of all, before talking about the melon, many times they ask me, we read it in the book, we see in the website and so on. Today I bring with me proof. That's mean this is occupation. This is occupation coming after the Second War. And we needed to make a check, I'm sorry, but to understand each other well, or to understand the situation well. Maybe, sorry to say that, no one here study, I think, this map. This is originally map. If you're looking well in this map, when it's Yugoslavia here, says here, Palestine. Look here, well, the time when they do this map, when they teach the people about Jesus when he born, and when he born in Nazareth, after that, he go to the Bethlehem and stay in Bethlehem, and so on and so on. And this is originally map. This is, I don't think so, it's fake. You can touch it, anyone touch it, you can look well. Yes, I understand totally. We are in this life to accept each other, to understand each other. And I am a Palestinian, I respect a Muslim or Jewish or Christian, same in Slovenia, same in any country in all the world. We must be to understand each other and accept each other. If someone needed to touch it before to put it down, he can touch it or looking well, if someone needed to look or to touch it. This is first of all. If anyone one. This is something very important, and I can show anyone many proof about the history. So the important point for us always must be, or I think so, just my idea, to looking about the history. When I mention about myself some information, I say I am in my second home, and I respect my second home, Slovenia, because they give me a lot here. So I would like to go to now to something very important or urgent also. My family, 6 months ago, the occupation attacked the area, and many people maybe know, same anyone in Gaza, the kids to my sister die, and my stepmom invalid, and so on, and the home is destroyed. My mom and all the people 2 days now in Jabalia, and no one knows this information, I think so. It's close, Jabalia. This is in the north. And no media, no television, no any information, no any instruction about this information. And hundreds of people, when I'm calling my mother, international call, she tell me 100, we try to go outside. They mentioned for us, go outside Jabalia to the south, Khan Yunis, Rafah, and so on. But when we try, they killing us or anyone move. So no one, or also Al Jazeera or Al Arabiya or any channel sent this message. About the melon, sorry to talking a lot, but we know it's a lot of information in this 1 year in Gaza, and I hope the peace for everyone in this life. When we're talking about the melon, I would like to thanks, and I appreciate it when they try to mention some information about Palestine by any way. And I respect that. Really, thanks a lot to anyone. By any way, he tried to send the message for the Palestinian. Sometimes I know it's difficult for you to mention directly. Sometimes it's difficult for you to show everything exactly. But when you try, for us, it's a lot as a Palestinian. This is about the melon. Yes, we have the flag for us, same colors. Black, that's 75 years now, this Nakba, and that's mean how many days it's black for us. Blood, how every day the people bleeding and die and so on. Green, Alezelena, that's mean our country, it's green. When you're looking to the Palestine or the occupation Israeli. White, the white for our heart. We have heart white. This is melon. I really thanks for them about this point, but I hope always to try the people to have more power to send our message as a Palestinian, because we are under occupation more than 75 years, but in same time we accepted to be two countries by Geneva and Oslo and so on, and many of people, they can make a check. This is about this point. The second question, sorry.
Yeah, the second question was just when you were living in Gaza, how did you resist the occupation in every day? You wake up in the morning and you do what? Just live life, or do you understand what
I would like to mention for you, I'm studying in Gaza City French language when I've been there. And when you're looking to the Gaza, you can not do a lot, because Gaza, it's close, 365 kilometers square, so more than 2 million. You try to focus to be your life normally. And I can, if you would like a few seconds, the people try to be in normally life. The people try to build. The people or the culture for the Palestinian, we're looking for building for a future, for normally life. And I can show you, if someone would like a video, a short video, that's mean when before this war crime, or genocided in Gaza. And now, this video I can mention to anyone also how it's Gaza, how it's the life. For myself, as a father, I am looking after that to be with my children, to teach them, and so on and so on. But I find it will be very difficult for me to stay in this situation. Also, when I start this trip to be in Europe, because I understand a little bit about the culture to the Europe, and I am looking to the safe life for my children and my wife. That's mean also in same time this give me a power now to help my family in Gaza. So yes, I have 6 sisters and 1 brother, but today I try to help them. So at this point it's good, but in same time I'm not feel well every day because I remember myself when I am Gaza, still my family in Gaza, and that's mean don't thinking the people we are sorry to say this or mention that the people in Gaza it's stupid or something like that. No, we are normally people. The people in Gaza looking to be in safe life, normally life, looking to the good future, to study and so on and so on. And look, you can look to how many people educated in Gaza. You can look how many company and so on and so on, and it's very small. So this is my life. I know it's complicated in Gaza, but when I remember myself, I love myself there. Also, I miss everything there in Gaza. So the idea when we're looking about myself or my family, I'm looking as a human being to be, or as a Palestinian also, to be in normal life there, to work and to study and so on and so on. This is myself. It depends to the people, but most of them in Gaza like that.
Yeah, okay, so to live life, basically. This is the strategy, a little bit
me, I think
what
so.
you were saying before, Aurel. Yeah, the organic continuation of life can be interpreted as a strategy of resistance.
Or you hear me many times, I try to send my message, as I mentioned, as a Palestinian, because I don't like the way as this occupation or this government for the occupation Israeli, when they're killing more than 10 million Tisoch, Eliudi, Omerlo, and Ose. Everyone is silent. And I don't know until when. And when you ask me about the future, I don't think so when it's still this. He's not man for me, to be honest. This Netanyahu, the primary minister for Israel, he and this Smotrich and this name, I am not a political man. I am as a Palestinian, I'm looking to the future, looking well to this man. He don't care. He care how many people will die, how many kids will die, how many places he will destroy. And when we're looking, if he talking about Gaza before, today he's in Lebanon. He attacked Beirut. Beirut, it's normally, and also now he attacks Syria. And so when I hear one doctor, his name Bassem Youssef, he writes something. I respect him about this information when he shared this information. Yesterday it's Gaza, today it's Lebanon and Syria, tomorrow Middle East, after tomorrow we understand. So must be same this Netanyahu to the international law, stop him. I don't understand sometime when my friend mentioned for me how this man Netanyahu, or this is Netanyahu, they say Netanyahu for him, primary minister, and the Smotrich and so on, they say many information, or they share information by the media and by the United Nations and so on and so on. We don't understand until now how the international law not stop them. This is the idea. So the future, I think so, if it's still some people like this man will not be fine everywhere. So I hope so these people stop them and go to the jail. must be, because we're looking to the normally life as a human being, as a Palestinian. We're not looking for fighting.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective. We invited Asel and Ahmed to join this panel because, as it's also written in the book itself, the book has it covers a lot of struggles from a lot of places in the world, but of course it does not cover every place and every struggle. And there is a few blind spots. One, for example, is Sub-Saharan Africa. The other one is Central Asia. So maybe you, Aurel, as the editor, can you comment a little bit on why, in your opinion, you didn't receive contributions from these places? And then if you can pass on the microphone to Asel, and you can maybe share a little bit with us the Central Asian perspective. Yeah?
Yeah, I can comment on that. In general, I just want, like, one point that I forgot earlier to make, but which is important, and maybe it's clear to everyone here already, but this authoritarian turn that we see at the moment happening is a global phenomenon. We discuss it mostly in national boundaries and national societies and try to find reasons nationally or locally, but we can see it everywhere, and we see it in states that are already organized in a very authoritarian way, like China. Even there is an authoritarian move to the right, or we see it in liberal democracies in Europe, or we see it in South Africa. So we see it really globally. It always takes local form and merges with local established hierarchies and systems of domination, but it is a global phenomenon, so we need to understand it globally, and we also need to understand how to fight it globally. So that was our idea, why we have this broad scope and this global scope. But of course, we cannot aim to produce the whole, like, to reproduce the perspective of the whole world in one book. That, like, trying that or claiming that would be Eurocentric in itself again. And even if we had a contribution from every country, then we wouldn't have it from every local area or every subgroup in the country, or so this is futile in itself. We still tried, of course, to achieve, to spread our open call as far as possible and to get contributions from as many places as possible, but this still, of course, depended a lot on our reach, on our networks, who we could reach, who we know. So I myself used to live in China and India, so this was quite easy for me, but other places are harder to reach. We have a lot of connections to Latin America, but few to Sub-Saharan Africa. We could use the networks of Rosa-Luxemburg-Stiftung, but also they are also limited to the places where they have their offices. And so this, of course, is reflected in the book, and there are blind spots. Central Asia is one, Oceania is another one, which is not represented at all. And Sub-Saharan Africa is not reproduced in the same, like, there are contributions from Sub-Saharan Africa, but not in the same amount. There are also problems of translation, as we found, because the concept of authoritarianism does not really translate in the same way in every society, in every culture. In many Sub-Saharan African contexts, authoritarianism is a very positive concept if you don't translate it right. So it was a bit difficult for us to find critical contributions on this topic. We had to put in more work of translation, and in other places we just, like, we don't speak all the languages, and we also don't know people who speak all the languages, so we also don't know where we need to put in this extra work of translation, and at some point we have to finish the book. So yeah, that's how these blind spots are created. But we also created this book as a starting point to talk about counter strategies and not as an end in itself. So also the exhibition, for example, that can be ordered as a newspaper for free and can be put up everywhere. Also contains spaces where you can add your own wallpapers to it and expand on it. And also in the discussions, of course, we want to expand on it, on the experiences from other places, from other strategies. That's really just a starting point for discussion. Also on this affective dimension of counter strategies.
Hi again. I will just explain you why I call myself as an urban activist. Though I'm an architect, trained an architect, and I'm also practicing architecture. But I'm also a co-founder and actually founder of the. It started as the grassroots movement initiative. Almost 10 years ago, 9 years ago, to be precise, Urban Forum Almaty, and now we registered an NGO called Urban Forum Kazakhstan. And I have to say that in Kazakhstan we don't have freedom of speech. Many journalists or many bloggers or people who speak out loud about the current situation, economical, social and political situation in Kazakhstan, especially when it comes to relationship with Russia, for example, because we're very much dependent, unfortunately, on Russia, and we young people actually try through the art contemplate and think about the past of the part of the when we were part of the Russian Empire, but yeah, I can talk about that for a long time. But anyway, back to my mission, back to our mission, my work. There's no freedom of speech. There is no, we don't have, for example, place for peaceful protests, for meetings. It's all, we have to apply to the city administration, and usually we don't get approval. They always find, but they never say no, you cannot. They always find a legitimate reason that why we can't get together and talk about, for example, ecological situation, about feminicide that is happening in Kazakhstan at the moment. Many women get raped and killed every day in Kazakhstan out of the domestic violence, for example. So the trick is that urban activism or urban space is the only way, safe way, or at the moment safe way to talk about democracy values, to talk about democracy processes, to get together and speak about and how we can all, as representatives of different communities and stakeholders, get together and change or make an impact or influence on decision-making process in a very in a national level, but personally myself, I do believe at the moment that the changes, at least in Kazakhstan and Central Asia, can be achieved through working with the local communities on the local level, on the city level, or in neighborhood level. So this is the only way when we can actually openly speak about the future, about the values, without being arrested or risking being arrested, because we say, let's build a public space together through participatory design, or let's do the research and see if people are happy about living in this city, if they're happy about the life, how the life conditions, and we cover it saying that this is, we're going to look at the identity of the city, something like that. So unfortunately, this is the only instrument and tool. Well, art is another thing, but I'm not an artist. But yeah, so that's why coming back to your question, unfortunately, and as you said just now, not many people or not many countries are ready or can loudly or openly say that we live in authoritarian regime, for example. We claim that we are democratic, very independent and very progressive society, but we do not have, unfortunately, the space for civil society to raise. So it's, unfortunately, that's where I'm coming from, the context at the moment. But so actually what we do, not only we do this, also research, conversations, seminars, and recommendations, trying to reach out the city authorities and government, but also we very much invest into educational sector, and we try to talk to the future generation and pass them our values. And we personally, myself, I only have hope on the future generation of Kazakhstan, and actually not in the urban or city privileged areas, but actually in the village areas. Yeah, but thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I just want to know where my co-moderator went. Oh, okay. I hope she will succeed, because it is truly a bit annoying. So yes, and now to move on to you, Ahmed. Let's say you are a member of Infocolpa. Infocolpa is a civil initiative organizing and advocating for the rights of asylum seekers and other migrants. So first of all, how do you see the migrant struggle? Is it even a struggle? Is it a movement? Is it just individualistic, every man on its own? And the second question is concerning Morocco. And I would ask you the same thing as Asel, and it actually to comment on the situation, what kind of counter strategies can be employed, how successful or unsuccessful these strategies can be.
I would like actually to answer the second question first, because it has, this is the result of the second question, the strategies and the situation in Morocco, right? So if we always go to Morocco specifically, generally Africa, we have a background, a historical background, in fact, which means that what actually made right now Morocco or Africa suffer and made Europe suffering more from the immigration movements that is happening nowadays, and of course before, many other years ago. So I would love to, to mention a main point which is very known for many people of you. You talked about the freedom of speech that does not exist in Morocco, in Kazakhstan. I would love to mention the same point, in fact, that exists also in Morocco, that the old generation has a serious problem because it is a brainwashed that, old generation always think that the life, the normal life, it is this life that he has right now, unfortunately. The next generation that came, which is us, right? It's the generation that has a little fire, that wants to make a change, that unfortunately, you created a masterpiece, Beyond Molotovs book. It is a great, but the question that you asked, who we reach, who people we reach, we don't know who people we reach. That is a good question. The people that actually we really need to make a strategy with and do we want to reach are the people that right now are here making a migration movement to Europe, because the situation is not like it has to be as a normal life in Morocco. Speechless, the freedom of speech is, unfortunately, is not exist. The colonized played a real role that replace every time the same people, the same, you have a republic or I don't know. We don't have a republic, we have a kingdom system, which means actually the 1% people that they have control of all the resources, as I mentioned many times, the same generation of the same families that they have the same power, they replace their own generation every time and created for us two classes. The first class that takes all over everything, and the second class that has nothing and has no also the freedom of speech. This is what I have. The second the first I answered the second question. The first question, what is it? I'm sorry, I didn't focus with you.
Yeah, I think you answered them both together. It's just the migrant struggle. There is a few things about it. Unfortunately, Desmond, who actually published in the book, could not be here with us today. He apologizes. He will be with us tomorrow. But there is other things as well. There is the Alan Kurdi actions that took place all over the world, and but yeah, I mean, what is your view on that? You have first-person experience, you know.
Yeah, as a first-person experience, actually, as you know, a young member of a group of activism in Morocco in university times. It was successful mainly inside of a place that we were, you know, with only the students that we had there, but unfortunately it couldn't spread too much to the public, because always there is a superpower behind, you know, all the movements that we did, that we were trying to do at that time to make a change, but always the change is limited. You know, always we were always limited. So, you know, you say today a lot of movements that are happening right here. This is the result of exactly what happened there. This is the result that Europe right now trying like to answer the questions why exactly the media shows a lot of other facts that exist about our country or other countries that are near, you know. But unfortunately, there are many dark sides that not always the media can show, not always the politic agendas can talk about.
Yeah, does anybody have the time? Oh, okay. We still have some time. So please, questions from the public or engagement from the public. If anybody would like to ask something, welcome back, Sasha. You were successful. Yay, bravo. Yeah, do you have some last questions to ask?
I missed half of your conversation. But if somebody didn't mention, I can just say, for example, my personal perspective, that is, of course, the artistic element and the element of emancipation in the book that are prominent, and the changes within, but at the same time, demanding responsibility and demanding, like the mural, for example, was for me something that I kept returning to. There is a mural, you can explain the story better than me, but in any case, it is, there were extrajudicial killings in Colombia, and there's somebody responsible behind all of this, and so this demanding responsibility, how to do it best, the very fact that people remembered to put a mural with faces of responsible people, with their positions, with the numbers of murders that they're responsible for, is very potent and very strong. And this is type of art that I can only support, and also, like what he was saying before, yes, okay, it's Netanyahu, and around Netanyahu there is a whole lot of people whose names we don't know, that I would really like to know, you know, so that we can do something in demand responsibility. How, I don't know, this international court is now, forgive me, but joke, you know. It's a bigger joke than the Hungarian party with the two-tailed dogs, you know, it's in the book. But it's also there, yeah. But yes, this demanding responsibility, I don't know if anyone else has something to say, but for me this was the most important aspect. And there's always new people that you need to demand responsibility from, so the struggle never ends, right? But yes, this is one of the better, I would say, aspects also that are present in the book.
Yeah, it's good that I can talk a bit about the editorial decisions behind this contribution, but also the two contributions that you mentioned now, the one of Desmond and the one of the watermelon, what we thought about it, why we chose these. And this part, what you say about accusation, is something which we thought about quite a lot, because why is it freeing to accuse? What is the effective strategy behind it? Because it sometimes is even mobilizing and like creating a certain force if you just accuse without having any kind of real chance of ever getting justice. There's also accusations that come, like there are strategies such as the mothers in Argentina, where there are accusations that come much later, like decades after, but it's still powerful to accuse. And I think that there is a part of it. Of course, there's also the real strategy of bringing justice and getting justice and accusing the right people and bringing them to justice. But there's also the necessity to not lose yourself in all the fake news, in the retelling of the stories, in the dehumanization that is there constantly, and that keeps glossing over atrocities like it is nothing, that keeps turning humans into numbers and really fetishizes that destruction. And in this case, getting together and accusing and saying we do not forget, we cannot do anything about it more than that right now, but we remember that you did that and we will not forget it and we will write it down and we accuse you of this, is a powerful, effective starting point for a strategy. And I mean, similarly with the watermelon flag, it feels almost cynical in a way to have this contribution, because it's such in a way it's a positive symbol. It is a funny subversion in a way, and then you can say, okay, what can this kind of strategy do when you're faced with such will for destruction, with such inhumanity, and yeah, like this strategy alone will not do it, but I think it's still important to point to it because it teaches a few things. It teaches that when you battle fascism and authoritarianism, you need to use everything it throws at you, every kind of repressive apparatus, whether it's a fence or like in this case a ban on showing a flag, and use it against it, subvert it, to have any kind of chance. But it's also important to know that it's freeing. It gives you back your agency when you do this, when you turn the tools of repression into vessels of communication, into possibilities to make yourself seen or heard. And I think that this watermelon flag is not unimportant in a way that I don't think it's completely self-explanatory that there are these atrocities in Palestine, that Israel is doing these things, and at the same time, on another side of the world, there are people occupying university campuses in solidarity. So there is at least something, and these kind of strategies, they transport some solidarity they created. So they are important, but they are by no means enough. And with Desmond's contribution and the poetry and the blog in itself, I found it very powerful. I mean, in general, for us, it was also important to show that to break through this distinction of there's a liberal democracy and then there's authoritarian states on the other side. But that liberal democracies also have authoritarian parts in themselves and authoritarianism in themselves, and the EU border regime shows this quite a lot, because it's this extremely violent, extremely repressive, dehumanizing system that is part of these societies, and there is an affect behind it. There's also like an emotional response that wants this kind of violence in the societies themselves, in the people, and there's a whole machine of dehumanization that makes it possible to have this violent authoritarian system. And yeah, I found this poetry very powerful because it battles against this dehumanization. When you read the poetry that is written by people who cross the borders themselves, who are faced with this repressive system, you suddenly see them as other humans again. You understand their perspective, and at the same time you understand the violence of the system, and it's really powerful. But I also think that it's really great because it's not only a communication that is aimed at the people in the liberal democracies in Europe, within this fortress of Europe, but also as an archive of the experiences that the people make themselves, and to, again, memorize, accuse, show for themselves, not necessarily for others, which I also think is really important.
You said about strategies and you talked about poems, and I just wanted to say that back in Kazakhstan we have now new generation of young poets and singers that actually speak Kazakh language, and actually going back to our native language, because for when we were part of the USSR, we hardly could speak our Kazakh language, which is completely different from Russian language, and we have this generation who lost their connection with the language. So for example, myself, I don't speak very well my native language, and I feel very sad about that. But actually, through reclaiming your language, it's also a strategy or the way to reclaiming back your history and your dignity. But talking about dignity and talking about the violence, I just wanted to say, and I think that Katya kind of encouraged me to talk about micro-resilience, micro, how to say? The small steps that we do, micro-resilience. And actually, I also wanted to say, before I will jump into that, I just wanted to say that we have actually Rosa Luxemburg Foundation in Kazakhstan, and they're very supportive. We are partners with Urban Forum Kazakhstan, with our NGO, and with them we talk about the water, actually. So it's not only about language, but also environmental issues and ecological crisis. It's also another way to, well, fight for our rights and fight for our dignity and against injustice, I have to say. But another way that personally I do, and that's my way of bringing the changes, is the toilet project that I do with if you don't mind, I will tell shortly. In Kazakhstan and many little villages and towns, we still don't have this huge system, and the kids go to the outside toilets, and we have severe climatic conditions, minus 30 degrees in the winter, plus 30 in summer, and all the most terrible things that might happen to a child happens there: bullying, raping, killing. And Kazakhstan has the highest rate of suicide among teenagers, if not the highest. But the thing is that the consequences goes further. The thing is that it actually creates the whole system of corruption and the whole system of injustice, because the kids that grown up in those environment and they just being cruel and violent to each other, they grow up and they continue being cruel and violent to each other. So I kind of see the roots of the violence now, or for domestic violence towards women, actually rooted to the childhood experience. So as Kazakhstan is trying to make a beautiful image of democratic, independent and very progressive country, we also say the same about the schools, but we don't solve the most basic things, and we are not going because it sounds kind of boring or not interesting, not cool, unfortunately. So we do it. We go to these small village schools and we talk to the kids and the teachers, and we, through the participatory design, through the creative workshops, we teach them how to reclaim the ownership of those places. Not only toilets, we start with the toilets, but then once we figure out this problem sorted out, we want to go to the libraries, to the public spaces. But that's one of the strategies, how again show how to be resilient and resistance through just little steps and small practices, and through the community work all together. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about the strategies that we do.
I believe has a question.
It's a comment. I've just remembered last Thursday we had a workshop with Asel in our Infokolpa office, and this is about like art and how do we imagine and see. And then you know, in Central Asia we used to live in mobile little dwellings called yurtas, you know, so this was like something that was very usual before the beginning of 20th century and before the permanent settlement plan started with the enhancing of the Soviet Union as an economy and as a social state. And then she asked, I would like to welcome our guys, Ibrahim. She showed the ornaments on the yurts, which were mostly done by taking the elements from nature. And very beautiful ornaments are made of river meanders. And then she was like asking guys, and like, what do you see? And then Ibrahim said, border. So I was like, oh, this was a moment when it was not shock, but it was like not beautiful, but it was exactly that moment, because Kolpa is a river, you know. For somebody is a beautiful thing, you know, river when you see, especially from drones, you know, these beautiful meanders that become the part of your ornament, you know, that you reclaim today in order to come back to your roots, to become your future, something like this. And then our guys, they said it's a border, and it was like, yeah, that was a great answer actually, you know. So
and you are welcome all to come to and help build the, yeah.
So I have a question I can ask? Sure. Yeah, thank you. I would like to know how it's become this idea to do this book, how it's started this idea, first of all. And I would like to know, you travel a little bit this country when you do this book or no? So you go, example, to the China, Malaysia, the country to know a little bit about this country, or just you research and read, and after that you did it and write it? Because, you know, I think so. Always my grandmother, sorry, I'm a little bit maybe traditional sometime, but my grandfather, what she say, must be to know in this time the reality, must be to know three things. And they say she's sick or old about my, I say to my mind, not for her directly, must be to touch it and to see, touch and see, and to hear. Three things in same time. To say this is the reality, because you know many, as you mentioned, many fake news. So this is my two questions. You visit some of this country, as example Gaza or Palestine or the Israel or occupation Israeli, and another country, and also how it's become this idea, or how it's started this idea.
Yeah, this is a really important point and always a difficult one. And this is a very danger. I mean, of course, this is also a point that you raised as well with the reach. I mean, we are like situated in Berlin with a fancy political foundation with a lot of money behind it, and we make this book about the world and about the global south. And like this is there are a lot of questions about political representations of our limits of our understanding and of the dangers of misrepresentation and not particularly by not having been there or by not having talked to everyone. We tried to mitigate some of these problems. We could not solve everything. We still wanted to do this book because we found it really important. I think that in the end, this is a book that can be a strategic. It will enrich anti-fascist strategies. It is useful for people. We also have the problem of the reach. It's a book in English that limits the reach. We try to translate the exhibition in as many languages as we can to heighten the reach. And the book is also open access. It's available online for free, so everyone can who reads English can use it. And we try to distribute it as far as possible. And I mean, we are here to talk about it as well. We try to travel as much as we can. And to speak to people. With regards to the regions, I totally agree. When you have not been there, when you have not touched the ground, when you have not heard it, smelled it, you cannot know what is real and what is fake. Amongst us in the editing collective, we have been to most of the countries where the contributions were from. So we in Latin America and in Asia, and also in Africa. We have these backgrounds, particularly with the Middle East, with Iran and the Arab countries. In our narrow editing collective, we were less involved. But for every contribution that we had from somewhere that we have not been ourselves or could not really judge the context, we would have people in our network from IRGAG, because the International Research Group on Authoritarianism and Counter-Strategies has quite a lot of fellows who work on authoritarianism who are mostly from the Global South, from other countries, and they could consult us on whether this makes sense in the context or not. And we tried to listen as much as possible. That's not perfect. It's not a perfect solution, but this is how we tried to solve it.
Just for example, we have a fellow from Palestine in our research group, and we asked her, okay, because when we did the call, we did not get, I think, or we got like one proposal from Palestine. We said, okay, because there's two in the book, and so through her, who does like really fantastic work and who I can really like kind of vouch for, and if I believe her, like if she suggests like, okay, you can talk to this person or that person, if she or he sends like a contribution, it will be a good thing. And then of course we got the contributions, and then we always discussed it again with other people. There's of course always kind of a risk if you want, but yeah, we kind of took care of it. And then just to get back to the first question of the idea, I mentioned it briefly, but it was really, I don't know, because I really know very little of Slovenia. I know that in Germany and the other like Western European countries, there's like in the left, and not only in the left, there's like a kind of a feeling like a paralysis in a way, like really a kind of a shock moment, which has been going on like for long, like against the threat of fascism, like nobody seems to really know what to do. And there's like, it's a kind of a shock moment, which was also like the reason why this research group was founded in a way, where we said, okay, like from Germany, maybe now is like really the time, or from Europe, maybe it's like the time to talk to people or listen to people like from all over the world, where there's like long-term experiences to dealing in authoritarian contexts, you know, like to have like counter strategies, have like other perspectives on things. It was not the only reason for this, but it was one of the reasons to say, okay, we have to learn from each other to see what we can do with it, no? And I think for us, like when we kind of, because it was Aurel and me who kind of started this thing off, it was like really a key point of saying, okay, like now we are, like I'm passing my name Aurel as well, like hopping from conference to input talk to seminar, like on the far right and on the authoritarian, which are very important, and there's like a lot of research, but like this question of, what the fuck do we do now? Like what? No, what is like? Where would we start? It's like really important. And then there's of course like many different answers to this. We wanted like to look into this direction for I think the reasons that we told you about. Now like this question. Okay, what makes us actually take what is important for people to kind of regain. It sounds a bit cheesy, but hope, you know, because I think this narrative of the far right of we are winning, you know, the world will be like a far right world, conservative world, you know, like the women will be women and men will be men, and you know, and the white people will govern and so on. Like this promise that is there, you know, like okay. And this is the narrative that this is happening and they are winning. And this is a very strong narrative, which also like for people, and I think like many people over the world have like this sense of a deep crisis. So these promises of we are winning, we are the strong, and we like if you are on our side, you are like on the side who will be winning, is like, you know, it works. And so like, okay, what can we do to kind of find the cracks in this narrative and suggest like really different modes of seeing the world and of being together and of doing politics and so on was like really the key idea. No? So this is what we also write in some point. You know, this book is actually just getting like these 150 proposals from all over the world and going through it and looking at like, wow, I've never seen of this little city in India, like where there's somewhere there we have like a feminist graffiti collective who are like in a I don't know if it's small. I say small Indian city. Probably it's not small at all. Yeah, so it's from different parts of the world where we see, okay, there's like things happening which I have had no idea about, but they are happening. Like per se was like just really like a very important thing to understand, and kind of we hope also like we get like you get an idea of it also when you flip through the book and say, okay, like this is just a very small thing of many struggles, ideas, strategies that are actually kind of you know, like struggling for other ways of for a different world, you know. And I think this is like really a key idea of this.
If I may, another thing about it, and connected to what all of you said, in a way it is also a window, okay, it is also very cheesy, but it is a window into places that you didn't know, that sometimes we cannot go, you know, like it would be nice to be able to go free movement, go wherever you want, but people cannot, you know, and then it is this lack of awareness of how you can approach authoritarianism, fascism, occupation, and so on. That is paralyzing, like what you said. For example, the best would be to go in person and meet people, right? I went to Morocco once, to Rabat. There was a group of Marxists. Okay, you sit down, you talk about Marx. It's very pleasant, you know, it's a nice experience. But you can not everybody can do that. Not everybody can approach these places and these strategies and these tactics. And here we have the world in a small, you know, this is, my grandmother used to say, the world in small. So it does, in a way, provide at least one step, one side of authoritarianism from human experience of struggle against it. Another aspect is to be able to connect this book with another book, for example, maybe, I don't know, it's just an idea, but, you know, just to combine experiences from Palestine with what we are experiencing as well, in a sense of, okay, for example, this is just, I'm just coming up with this now, but we have a migrant struggle, we have Frontex, we have borders, we have border technologies. They come from where? They come from Israel. They come from places, not only, but of course there are these connections that are invisible to the naked eye of a normal everyday person. But with this book and with the information of the other book that we can provide at some point, with the data, with the names of the companies that we're not supposed to buy from if we want to not support Israel, for example. You know, put the... I mean, if the more you provide this kind of combination of contents, the more we have these kind of events, probably it will clarify also what can be done, you know. Okay, I cannot go now and directly face the IDF, or I don't know, like, but I can also do something else, like not buy from specific companies, for example, right? I can also make it clear every step of the way, every time when it is possible to make it clear what border technologies are and where they come from, what their effect is, who is getting the money, what are the numbers, where is the company registered, who is the boss, who is he connected with, if the mayor is his friend. All of these things are very important for us to know, right? But I talk too much. So if anyone from the audience maybe has something to add, there is a question.
Yeah, hi, I'm a friendly native, I'm a local activist. And as a matter of fact, you just said a few things that are part of what I have also to notice and maybe ask. I think it's a wonderful book, judging by the very first contact I'm having. I'm sure I'm going to be plowing through it because I have time on my hands right now. But I find the expression handbook like massively deceiving, and I don't want to harass you too much, but it is exactly the thing you were just saying here. You see, for a couple of years here in Slovenia, we had some sort of activism going on daily against a local variety of fascist government. And while we were, you know, spending our times running away from police and spraying the ministries by night and doing crazy things we could, we were eager and we were super hungry for handbooks, but actual handbooks, not archives of other people's deep thoughts. And this is what I was also hoping to imply, but you kind of fooled me here, you woman there. A proper handbook would be a challenge to generate, because the fundamental research that you have undertaken here is like massively precious. It's like insanely important. It is glorious. The archiving of these practices is necessary, but then the proper research on top of it, the distillation, the suggestion of potential tactics, this is what I needed in my daily fight. My house is still full of spray cans and of stencils and of all kinds of, you know, pieces of textiles with words written over it. But when I was working on it, I needed tactical support, and I was like struggling to get it. So sorry for repeating myself. So are you guys using this book to talk to other people that are not just academics and collectors of stories, however beautiful that zone is and glorious, we can develop beautiful discourse and make more of it on top? Are you also talking to politics on one hand, political parties, you know, these places where people get paid to actually run systems and policies, and also activist groups that are right now in some struggle or other? I would really like to know. Thank you very much.
I mean, this is a valid critique in many ways, and in many ways it's not, because like we also had a lot of discussions whether we should call it a handbook or not. But in the end, we still think it is a handbook in many ways, and it is not a step-by-step guide for anti-fascist activism in the way that you were talking about. That's right, and that might be a bit misleading, but it is a handbook on the effective counter strategies, because that is the realm we focus on. Because in the end, none of these strategies can be copied step by step, and this is never the case for activist strategies, that they can be copied step by step from one context to each other. But what we try, and this is also like the main work in the introduction of the book, which is our main editorial contribution to this whole work, is to put these very different cases and very case studies, which we archived, as you said, into relation to each other and see, okay, within these different contexts, what kind of affective strategies, what kind of emotional or sensuous approaches seem to be applied by different collectives in very different contexts against fascism, and they seem to have a meaning and an effect against fascism. And that's something which we reflect on. And I think this is very helpful. I think it's really helpful on the ground for anti-fascist collectives to think about what kind of relationships do we foster, what kind of emotions do we create, all these kind of things I said before. I think this has strategical value. I also think, or in some other, like when we talk to activist groups, which we do quite a lot, like as we said, this book is a starting point for discussion. We talk about it to activists, we talk about it in artist areas, and also not so much to political parties so far. I'm not sure whether they're so interested in it. But then I also sometimes start by saying, okay, we talk a lot about how great the strategies of the far right are, how great they are in mobilizing emotion and getting people to their side and changing subjectivities. But if they are so great, why are you not fascists? Like, what are the experiences that you made that didn't make you a fascist? And what kind of, and then when you start reflecting about this in activist spaces, rarely people say, okay, I read this manual on anti-fascist resistance, and that's why I started doing it. Or I read, like, I read a great leftist text, and then I suddenly realized that this system is fundamentally unjust, and then I started to go to the street and protest or block Nazis. But they usually say, no, I came in with a friend group, and we started to protest against Nazis, or we discussed, or we thought, like we witnessed some injustices, and then we thought we have to do something about it. So the relationship is really important. Or they came to a soup kitchen, and where like it started to become an important part of their life. Or they went to political music festivals, and they, for the first time in their life, they felt truly free in a way, or like they could take on a very different subjectivity in the time, and that really changed the way they saw. They saw society, and they wanted to change society in this direction, and these kind of experiences are, at least in the activist spaces I know, in the more militant and more organized activist spaces, they are often discarded. In Germany, for example, for political festivals, they sometimes say it's holiday communism, and they're not really taken seriously as basis of politicization and parts of anti-fascist strategies. And this is something which we want to change and talk about very practically, and I think that in this way, this really is a handbook that you can read as an activist collective and follow with.
And just, I'd like to add two ideas quickly. I already mentioned that I think we are dealing with a context that, like at least like in Europe now, like it's changing, but not only in Europe, like I think worldwide, like it's changing towards like a less democratic, more brutalized, more weaponized regime. And this changes like also many things. So I think this is also like a lot of new terrain. Also many things are like well known, but it's also like a new terrain. And I think this is something that we also need like to reflect on before like presenting this kind of easy step-by-step guide. Was one thing. The other thing is also what Aurel was already explaining. We are looking at a level which is probably not translatable in like a very like tactical guide. No, like for instance, I was just looking here at the exhibition, and then there's like several of the contributions which are about humor, you know, and ridicule, and like and we make a point on this, and we say like, okay, how important it is like to laugh about something, like to ridicule the far right, to laugh about it, and how this can be liberating, how this can be like very effective politically, but it's not possible to tell you how you should do a joke in Slovenia. You know, like as a German, I won't come and say like, you know what, like a good joke works like this. Why? Because humor works like different. There is shared things. We have this meme, these like internet memes, and internet meme is like, of course, like a way of like globally organized humor in a way. But there's other things that are like only so and so far sensitive. So the idea is, if looking at this, what do you take with you in a way? No, no, we hope that in a way it like inspires also. No, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to just make a combination of what was said in the sense that how we can observe this as a handbook in another perspective is also the very fact that it is a book that is one of the rare books, because I Googled, I checked. Google doesn't give you everything that you want because it's a company that does not tend to do that. It makes you think it does anyway, but I checked about handbooks, right? Handbooks on anti-authoritarian struggle, this kind of struggle, that kind of struggle. And there are some self-made, do-it-yourself collectives that have attempted and have done typical handbooks. The rest is very theoretical or out of date, or does not cover, for example, such a region, especially not the region that Beyond Molotovs is covering. And this is one aspect of the value in connection to the question why handbook and not something else. But another thing that I thought it would be more important to add is the fact that this is about integration. Integration of this, how you phrased it now, European perspective into the world. We are now becoming more militarized, and more there is fascism developing, and so on and so on. There is war. There is in Europe now, right? And there is all of the steps and things that are occurring elsewhere in the world as well. For some time now, for reasons that we can continue to discuss, but I think we know them. And it is an integration of this European audience, I think, into the reality of human experience and politics and political decision-making and resistance and so on in much more of the world, because Europe is not the world. And this is the value, I think, and this is how it can be approached. It is a tool for education of ourselves. And then from that point on, I would still combine it with data, which I think it can be provided. It's not just copy a joke, right? From Germany to Slovenia, or from, I don't know, Palestine to Kazakhstan and so on. But it is more about really exposing, which the book is doing as well in many contributions, especially in the category exposure, constant exposure, and clarifying the connections of very well organized fascism and authoritarianism, because it is not just emotionally and affectively and so on how it operates, but it is also very clearly, there are clear financial constructions, the whole infrastructure of logistics, of everything, how it operates, media connections. These things are there, and there are journalists, for example, who are also doing this kind of research, and there is also a trend of infographics now that is able to make these connections, because otherwise our brains cannot grasp the complexity of this evil, right? So that's why I'm saying it should be read in connection with this kind of data, right?
Yeah. I just wanted to add one practical point, and I don't want to make it too long, but because you asked like how this, to what spaces and to what people the book gets. So just, I'm always bringing this exhibition in, so take a look at it afterwards. This exhibition is like a kind of, the idea is, okay, you do a book, and this book has to be sold somehow. So this is like one limitation. It is in a language, so it's in English. So this is like a big limit. Like in a lot of places, like many people in this world don't speak English. I mean, yeah, and we like in Latin America, we're always like, oh, when do you do the Spanish translation? And then in other parts, and it's completely legitimate, but of course it always means like a lot of work, a lot of money, and so on and so forth. So what we did, Aurel already mentioned it, it is like open access, and you can just, like here in the door, we like put a link, you can just download the book for free. Of course, then you have a PDF, but this is one way of like bringing it out beyond the limits that we have. Another way, and this is like what can be done with it is like that we printed this exhibition, which is printed on a kind of a newspaper, and we printed it like 2,000 times. So you can just order it for free and hang it for whatever. And the idea is that, you know, like whatever social spaces, cafes, occupied squads, whoever wants, like can just take it and put it on the wall and put other things around it. Like this is our idea. Like, okay, if you come from whatever, you know, oh, in Kazakhstan we have it. Okay, we'll make one thing about Kazakhstan. We'll make another thing about what's happening here in Ljubljana. So it's just like, you know, to edit. And then, of course, like when the people from the editing committee can sometimes travel there and this and go to activist spaces, sometimes more academic, but I think we have not done many academic things about it. Actually, it has been everything we've done so far has mainly been with activist people. And then it's just like our ways, the ways that we found like to do things that can be like used in a way, you know, from different spaces and from different people. And I think the feedback we got so far was really nice, because when we like first showed it in Berlin and presented it, there were like many people from very different collectives, actually, you know, like from migrant collectives. There were like from people like in this, the people who are saving people in the Mediterranean. There were like from feminist collectives, from a lot of the Palestine solidarity movement, and everybody was kind of taking different things and saying, oh, this is good for me, you know, this helps to think about things. So in this sense, I'm like actually, yeah, positive about it.
So if there is no more questions, this is not the end. If anybody would like to talk more about the book and about the struggles and activist alliances, also eat some jota and listen to music from the Global Lunar Radio Show, you are welcome to come to Platz tomorrow. Linhartova 43. We start around 5, yeah. And it's the whole afternoon. There will be food. There will be some guests will join us through video call. Various Slovene collectives will be there. So it should be interesting afternoon and evening. You're all welcome to come. If anybody is interested to give us a donation for the book, we can do this after. I would sincerely like to thank all of our guests that shared their experiences with us here today. And of course the maps, this is amazing. Hasan, I have where did you get this? Okay, you will tell me after. Thank you so much for your precious time and your words and your thoughts, and especially your presence. And I suggest we slowly end this and open that door over there, because I'm running out of air and I'm probably not the only one. And of course, big thanks to both our guests from Germany, and amazing job you did with this book.
Thank you.